Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite things in Guilty Gear Strive and one of my favorite moves. Snip, 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 and Afro pressure. For general information, in this video I will explain a bit about snip, 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 and Afro pressure in general. Things that you should know, my general opinions on what's most important about Afro pressure, and also things that you should keep in mind. I'll show some sequences. I'll show how to deal with FD and the uses of JD and JH as the safe jumps, and what to do on block or on hit when you do your Afro pressure, so you can get consistent and strong Afro pressure. It is important to know that I'm not telling you which pressure to do, but I'm giving you a baseline that you can use always that will be consistent. The stronger your control over Afro pressure is, the more freestyle you can get with it, and the more crazy stuff you can do with it. That's basically it. For general information about Snip, it's a command grab, means it beats DPs, normal grabs, and if you time it properly, you'll beat opponents' command grabs. I'm known as a command grab addict. I love doing it. Shouts to snail forwarding more command grabs than anybody else on the planet, probably, from me. So, very strong tool already in Guilty Gear Strive, having a command grab. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it does give you a safe jump. In mid-screen, you'll do safe jump using JD. It's just an ID JD. At the corner, you can do a close/OTG into either JH or JD. You can do the JH in mid-screen as well, but it's timed, so you may want to avoid it. As you can see, against characters with no reversals or that don't have meterless reversals, this is not too bad to use. The main use of JH is to get a bit more risk and a bit more meter before you start mixing up your opponent. The thing that you're paying is basically that, as you can see, it is a time setup. The thing that you're getting for it is extra risk and extra meter that you build while the opponent is respecting you for having the Afro. It does mean that you don't get the same timed setups that you do with Afro, so you want to make sure that your opponent doesn't get away without you putting the Afro on fire. Okay, so you can do a lot of different strings from JH. JH is very freestyle, a bit less restricted. If you do the JD safe jump, you basically put a timer on your opponent. And this timer is the Afro timer. As you can see, in about 3 seconds, that's like roughly what it takes for the Afro to explode. You can run a lot of different mixes, and I think the most important thing when you're doing Afro pressure is to be on top of your timer. So being aware and in tune with the timing of the Afro explosion will let you either run strong and consistent pressure like this, or and I'm just improvising right now, this is not things I thought of in advance, or it will let you fix situations that were maybe by IBFD or somebody matched at the correct timing, and you can always fix these situations if you want to, with a cross up or by running up and throwing right before the explosion actually happens. You have a lot of options in how to deal with it, but the first step is usually being tuned in with the timing of the explosion. Now, a general guideline I believe in is the thing you want to avoid the most, or the thing you want to happen the most, is the opponent will hold the explosion. Even if you get hit, even if you get knocked down, as long as the opponent holds the explosion, the situation is not too bad, because they're not running OP, and you might even be plus. So the thing you want to avoid most than everything is getting grabbed or air grabbed, since the grab animation can avoid the Afro explosion and keep the opponent safe. Some grabs are a bit faster, but you don't want to think against which characters that grab is fast or not when you're pressuring your opponent, so generally try to avoid getting grabbed during your Afro pressure. Whether it means to kicking back and letting the Afro explode and running forward afterwards as the explosion wears off and you can run strike throw, or whether doing a less risky mix. Another thing that I want to make sure you avoid doing is when you're at the corner, if you try to left your opponent, make sure he doesn't have burst so you don't get bursted into the corner. It's very easy to react to the Scarecrow with a burst, so you don't want to get your Afro pressure being turned into corner pressure against you. So these are general guidelines and things I believe that you should have in mind when doing your pressure, but of course you can do whatever you want, and these are just tips that I strongly advise it. Okay, so let's talk about the first layer of mix. So once you do your JD safe jump, which is the more consistent setup, once you do your first JD, usually you will go into a close slash. The reason you go into close slash is because A, it gives you better timing on a lot of options. You can jump cancel it, you can dash after it for a throw, you can do your 2D or JD, which is your high-low. You don't want to do JK because JK doesn't work on a lot of the cast. Also, if you do your JD safe jump, let me set the opponent to block only first. Once the Afro is on fire, only if JD is the first hit that connects in a combo, the Afro will explode. So as you can see, if I do this, Afro explodes. If I do this, Afro does not explode. Don't get caught off guard by doing this. Don't be confused. That's the rule, and you have to know it. In case this does happen to you, a lot of opponents will be caught off guard as well. Most people don't know that's how it works, so you can get a cheeky command grab there on them, or go for another strike throw by high-lowing them again. Like this. As you can see, it's just safe. You can do 2D there as well if you want to. So the first layer of mix. You land, you do your JD, close slash. And you either do JD or 2D. Let's show what they look like on hit, and then we'll show what they look like on block. So 2D, you will confirm into a mix. The reason you do it because that lets you do another mix right afterwards. I do 5D, which will be safe, will combo for very nice damage, or you'll do a 2D, for again, very nice damage. Every time you mix 2D and 5D, you want to make sure that you delay 2D slightly. 2D is 12 frames at startup, 5D is 20, so you basically want to delay it so the timing is similar. So you'll delay it by about 6 to 10 frames, and it will work. Okay, so that's 2D on hit. You can run different options off of 2D, but doing the mix will give you an auto time for the high-low. Other options will be throwing a bomb. Sorry, I say throwing a bomb, but throwing an item. You don't get to choose your items. Throwing an item to possibly like use as like extra mix, and or maybe just throwing 2 items and just making them hold the Afro explosion, and just going with a stronger item OK after it. But either way, that is your choice. Now let's look at the JD. JD on hit will of course make the Afro explode. Yeah, let me jump on guard first. So after that, you can do an air dash to combo and do whatever combo you feel like. You don't have to do the air dash if you feel uncomfortable with it. You can just land into a normal combo. This is just one option. You can see it does a lot of damage. Let's show a combo where I just landed into a combo. So you can do a close slash there. Like this. This is a very simple combo to do. Here it even does more damage. Again, these are just general ways that you can combo. This is not necessarily optimal or the best way to combo. It's all up to you. You can of course always reset the opponent with love Oki or mix at the corner into OTG pressure. So this is what the moves look like on hit. What about these moves on block? Okay, so now let's set our opponent to block really well. Let's say they block the 2D. So right now there's still a lot of time till the Afro will explode. The 2D is -4, and we don't have reliable ways to follow up. I would usually advise you to not follow up on the 2D and walk backwards. The reason is, if you remember, I think making the opponent hold the Afro explosion is probably very important, and walking back will give you some time to react if they are running to you and maybe they're trying to grab, maybe they'll jump. If they're in the air, it's great for you, you don't have to worry about that. Basically lets you be more in control of the situation. Throwing a 5H after you walk back, or maybe a 5P to make sure they're not running and throwing you is very good. After that, you can, if you're in control of your timing, try to cross up your opponent. Or you can go for a more safe option, which is throwing an item. You'll be safe generally if you do that. Of course, if the opponent is already running towards you, you won't throw the item so they can't grab you. But if the opponent does stay away, you can just throw the item and be in time to pressure them with strike throw after the Afro explosion, which is a strong position to be in. In case they block your JD, oh wait, before that, for 2D, you can try and overextend if the opponent is very respecting of you. It's probably worth mentioning. You do close slash 2D and you delay into a close slash 5D or a close slash 2D. You can get the second mix like this. It's okay to do if the opponent is very respectful, but again, it's up for you to make these judgment calls. Every time you overextend a bit more, you leave a gap to maybe get counter hit or maybe get reversaled. So keep that in mind when you do it. Okay, now let's look at JD on block. When you get JD on block, it's pretty scary because you're in the air. So the first thing I advise you to do, so you don't get air grabbed or get like knocked all the way to the other side of the screen, and then the opponent can block the Afro away from you. First thing I advise to do is jump back. After doing that jump back, you can do either JPs to keep the opponent away, like this, or do a landing JH, which if the opponent is staying grounded, as you can see, will hit most of them. After you do that, you can either tell if your opponent is close, you can mash 5P to make sure they're not getting grab on you. You can try and jump again to make sure you're not getting grabbed. But if the opponent is far away, you can do a scarecrow to mix them up left or right, or you can throw an item. Usually in these timings where scarecrow works, throwing an item will also work. It's like a general rule that you can keep in mind for an item and running forward with it to get item pressure and the Afro pressure. So that's JD on block. You can do other things like jump forward and jump neutral into a landing JS, but again, these options can be air thrown against sharp opponents. This can be dangerous. So you want to make sure you're doing it only when it's safe. Now, what if you don't want to mix your opponent? Or what if you're playing against Faust or Jacko where the instant JD doesn't work against them? What do you do? Well, something that is very good to do is this sequence, which is after the close slash, you'll do a close slash / 5H, which you can run into a scarecrow or into an item toss. The second close slash is usually respected by your opponents because they're afraid of the mix-up. If you don't want to run the second close slash, that's fine. You can just do close slash / 5H, then do an item toss or do the scarecrow. Both are strong situations. They're worth doing if you're playing against these two characters, or sometimes you just want to diversify your options. Maybe your opponent has good read on you when you're doing your mix and you just want to get an item out and get some risk out. So that's like perfectly fine. As you can see, this is perfectly okay. You build some meter, you get some risk up for the next sequence, and this is not bad at all. So that's a string I'd like you to keep in mind. Now I want to get to the most important sequence that I'm gonna show. I think this is a super important one. I think all Faust players should learn this and should learn how to do this consistently. The setup also comes from JD into close slash, and it looks like this. Into either 5D or some to not block flows, so I can show how the combo looks like too. Okay, this is meterless. Of course, you can use your super. This does insane amount of damage. It cranks a lot of risk. If they block it, you get your strike throw. You get a lot of meter from doing it. And you may have noticed that I throw out a JP there, which may look pretty weird because this sequence is usually used without the JP. Basically, if you're Faust and you're doing the jump forward, this is a sequence that I first saw Naga use. And you do this thing. Okay, this is basically the Naga sequence. So if you're doing this, a sharp opponent can jump grab you. As you can see, I have time to jump there. And that was very upsetting to me because I hate getting air grabbed when I'm doing Afro pressure. Let me do it properly, real quick. Just to show how upsetting it is. Okay, I'm like really bad at air grabbing sometimes, especially when I record. Jesus Christ, dude. Yeah, like this. So you can get air grab, and as you see, the Afro doesn't explode, which is very sad. It's very sad as a Faust player. So now I'll record the same sequence using the JP. This is my sequence. So same sequence, but with the JT, I will now hold up. As you can see, I can jump there, and you can't air grab there as well. I can jump in time. The JS will already catch me when I'm jumping. If you do see your opponent jumping there this way, then you will force them to block, and then you can run your mix-up. I'll show what happens if they duck the JP, which is something that can happen. As you can see, it catches the fuzzy. I was holding down there. I can try to 6-speed this. That's the counterplay there. You can beat the 6-speed as well. But again, you're forcing them to think more and more into the layers, which is good for you because the risk reward is always in your favor there. Even if they 6-speed you, remember that you'll wake up and they will hold the Afro explosion. So you should be still plus when you wake up. Let me just show what that looks like. But you can beat the 6-speed by doing an earlier JS. See? Like, it can take Oki, like right as they wake up, the Afro will explode. I think this is one of the more optimal sequences in terms of risk reward. But of course, you always want to mix up your options and get your opponent off guard. Ways to beat the 6-speeder specifically is to either do an earlier JS or do rising JD or just an arc jump into a JD that will punish them. All of these options are good. The JD will explode the Afro, which is why it's a good option. Let's go back to showing more sequences. So yeah, this sequence is very, very strong. It's very good to know how to do it. It's not very difficult. It's also good on FD, which is the next topic. What happens when the opponent is FDing? So when the opponent FDs, doing close slash into 2D or close slash into JD normally will not work, which is very sad, right? You do this, this won't work if he's crouching. So what do you do? So this sequence, since you jump forward while doing it, does work on FD. As you can see, this will spend a lot of meter to the opponent. So an opponent holding FD like this will waste like half a meter. He's just FDing at the right time, so the bot of course doesn't waste as much. But this is a very long sequence, so And we'll use a lot of the opponent's FD, which is another W for you, because at the end of this sequence, you'll just force them to hold the Afro explosion. You can throw another far slash there or throw an item. Both are okay. And you're just fine. Of course, you don't have to do the entire sequence, but it's a good way to also fight FD. So remember that if an opponent really likes FDing you, you can just skip the far slash and go immediately to either of the sequences we mentioned earlier. So it could either be this sequence, as you can see, the low from it, just doing 2D, immediately into the mix. Remember that if you skip the first far slash, you'll do a far slash first to combo. Not far slash, sorry. If you skip the close slash after the safe jump, and you want to combo afterwards or time it the same way, then you'll do a close slash. After that, you want to do a JD and not do 5D, since 5D whiffs there if they still have D. But yeah, that's basically how you deal with FD on the first layer. You can also still use the string we talked about before, the close slash, far slash, side H. Make sure you're aware of the spacing. As you can see, it pushes you very far. If this does happen, you can skip a close slash and just do a delay string against FDing opponents. It looks like this. Item. Remember, whenever item works, the scarecrow will also work. Now let's talk a bit about grab resets in between Afro. So on FDing opponents and also on non-FDing opponents, grab is a strong option since they're focusing on pushing you away. So doing something like the safe jump, the close slash grab, or doing the safe jump into grab are both strong options. And let's see the sequences from them. If you do immediate grab, you can do a safe jump into a grab since the opponent will be afraid because of the Afro explosion. This will combo. If you're near the wall, this will normally wall stick the opponent. Oh wait, sorry. If not, you do get to combo there with 5D, unless you did it a bit slow, like I just probably did. But either way, you get a decent situation. You do get to do a bunch of damage to your opponent. You can choose to not do the first command grab, and do an empty jump into a low that will combo, giving you like 150 damage or so. You can mix it up with the overhead with JD. Oh, sorry. You can see, so you get like a try high low. This is the high. You can do the 2P for the low, and you can do a command grab that will combo into the explosion. So this is a nice little mix that you can add to your layers. If you do the close slash into a grab, sorry, that looked kind of funky. If you do this into the grab, something funny will happen where the opponent will wake up and the Afro will be gone. So while the opponent may think the Afro is going to explode and they have to block it and wake up, actually it does not exist there. It disappears right before they recover, which is a perfect setup, especially when you cover the screen with your air dash to grab them again. It's something I really like doing. This is why people say I'm addicted to command grabs. I'll do something like this. It looks like they have to hold an explosion. Actually, there is no explosion. You get to reset the situation with an Afro, which is really strong. Of course, you can just run your normal safe jump, strike throw. After it, you don't have to do anything. But these like grab options will help you force your opponent to make more mistakes when they try to hold your mix, force them to jump when they shouldn't. And yeah, it's overall a very nice option to have. As you can see. So that's the general information you should have about Afro pressure, but snip, snip, snip. If you do have any questions, you're not sure how to execute, what to execute, when should you use what, you can always ask me here. You can ask me on my Twitch. I hope this was useful. I love Afro pressure. I hope you love it too. And I hope they use it really well and give people a lot of haircuts till they lose their minds. Till the next video, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.